just saw the movie for Thor: Love and Thunder in theaters, and just up front, in case you didn't read the title, big spoiler warning. I'm just going to talk about whatever I feel like, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, obviously go watch it before you watch this. But holy crap, this is another knockout, wonderful movie made by Taika. The entire feel of the movie is just absolutely incredible, right? It still brings the wonderful comedy and humor that you expect from Thor. It adds in plenty of new characters and elements, and overall, it gives a general positive and upbeat vibe that I would absolutely expect if I was going to be going in to watch another wonderful Marvel movie. So it opens up, and it's all about Thor essentially going on one of his famous, Thor adventures, right? Where he's just, saving a planet, hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, because obviously that's where we saw him last. But it turns out that he's needed elsewhere because there's a god killer. I think his name is Gore or something. And he goes around and he's essentially just trying to kill a bunch of the bad guys, right? Or I guess they're good and bad. He finds a moral reason why the gods are bad, but not all the gods are bad. And Thor ends up taking this threat personally when he finds out that one of his friends is in fact involved with this, I guess, god killer, as I guess we would refer to him as. And the entire movie is just about, it's kind of a classic journey of you take a main character and then something happens to that character and then the character is pulled into a situation. That's the kind of story that's been written here. It's wonderfully executed. The way that the movie goes ahead and takes Jane Foster, Natalie Portman's character, and allows her to be a bigger part of the Thor franchise, because obviously, as we know from previous movies, Jane was great. She did a fine, Natalie Portman did a fine job, but ultimately her character didn't have as much of an impact as it ought to have, in my opinion. And seeing her in this movie really does hone in on their relationship itself and really makes up for all the problems that were in Thor: The Dark World. I mean, shoot, I couldn't even get through the whole movie because it was just so boring. But this movie is absolutely wonderful. All the casting choices are great for the new characters. There's at one point in the movie where they are trying to get an army of gods together, and they want to enlist Zeus to help rally all the gods together. And Zeus, played by Russell Crowe, ends up just kind of being a dick. And essentially you learn that, hey, maybe all the other gods and stuff, even like your big heroes, right, aren't really worthy of being worshipped. And I think there's a really good arc in the movie about the worshiping of a hero. As in the beginning of the movie, you see that Thor is really looked up to. They're still doing the funny plays with Matt Damon, and Chris Hemsworth's son actually playing the role of Thor in the play. And I don't know, you get this energy and vibe from the beginning of the movie that everything's fine and that Thor is well respected. And, there's a lot of, weight on Thor's shoulders, to be honest, at the start of the movie. And, when the bad guy shows up, he's some sort of a shadow. He controls shadows and stuff. And he has this sword that gives this, normal guy all these incredible powers. So he ends up taking an interest in Thor specifically, as when he goes to Earth to try and essentially draw Thor in, he ends up capturing a bunch of children in order to make sure that Thor has a reason to come after him, because of course every bad guy needs a reason for the good guy to fall into a trap. Again, classic movie storytelling procedures. So after capturing the children, Thor is of course on this quest. Like I said earlier, he's trying to get an army of gods, and then it turns out that, I guess, all they really had was each other. There's a little bit of back and forth in the middle of the movie where Natalie Portman's character is essentially just sent to just go die, and it's really unfortunate. But of course, as in classic movie tropes, they have her seemingly not able to help anything in order for her to come back and save the day in the end of the movie. I don't know. Overall, I just had a really good time, and I think that in terms of the writing and in the way that the arcs of the characters go, I thought was very, very well done. For Thor, he's, kind of feeling sad and kind of humbled by his experiences of having broken up with Jane, and then as the course of the movie goes, he realizes he still loves her, but then ultimately has to lose her in the end, leaving Thor on his own, but not entirely. And we'll get to that in a second. For Jane, her character is, she's still human, and she finds out she has cancer because, of course, cancer is a very good way to kill your characters, as we know. I mean, the same thing happened to, Star-Lord's mom, and it sucks, right? That we have to use the same trope, but whatever, fine, we'll deal with it. And in this movie, essentially, Natalie Portman's character is dealing with the same cancer issues that I guess is supposed, as we learn in this movie, is connected to her family line. Like, they have a history of cancer, so she's trying to find some sort of scientific way to beat this thing, and she doesn't have an answer. And then that's when she finds out that Thor's hammer can temporarily help her kind of stave off the symptoms of having cancer, but what she didn't know is that it actually accelerates the rate of the cancer spreading in her body, which is a really big upset for Thor, obviously, when he learns of this, because he doesn't want Jane to be helping to fight. But at the end of the day, it turns out that Thor needs Jane in order to beat the bad guy, and we end up seeing that Jane sacrifices herself in order to save the world, as one does. And I thought that the movie was going to exist to introduce us to the two characters of like a new redefined Thor, as well as, they're calling her Mighty Thor in this one. That's what they've titled Jane's Thor persona as, I guess you could say. I wouldn't call it a persona. Obviously, they're the same person, but they're supposed to be kind of separate, because there's like cancer sick dying Jane, and then there's also Mighty Thor Jane, who's like super buff and able to kick butt, all that good stuff. In the movie, we see wonderful side characters. Heimdall is, of course, featured in the movie briefly in the form of his dead version of himself at the end of the movie, but we do see his character being kind of honored throughout the movie with his son, who tries to go by, some name. They don't really mention it that much, but there's a little debate over his name, and ultimately ended up making me lost as to what the character's name is. So that's something I would point out. But Heimdall Son is essentially a very important role in the movie, getting his powers. So we're essentially going to have another new character who's able to possibly see into the future, or see far away into space and time. Whatever his power might turn out to be, I'm not too sure. But he has the same power that his dad did, which is really cool, and he's learning to see things. And we get more of that cool, like kind of not hologram, but a kind of communication between Thor and being able to look around and explore an environment wherever Heimdall Son is, which is great. I love it. And the element of the bad guy, Gore, capturing these children and trying to use them to manipulate Thor, very good classic bad guy stuff. And what I really liked, actually, in terms of bad guys, is the fact that they kind of spoiled more of the same species that we saw in, I guess I don't know the exact name of the race coming off the top of my head, but they're the same guys from the Eternals, who I think they're the same guys, because they have the same structure where they have like 6 eyes, I think. And at first I thought, oh, this is Galactus, this is their reinterpretation of it. But they keep having this same species come up over and over. And I think it's really going to be interesting what they decide to do with this, I guess, new species that keeps popping in all over. I don't know if anyone else has noticed it, but I think it's worth pointing out the fact that this new species is, I guess, going to be, I think, the main antagonist when we have the next Avengers movie all coming together. But anyway, so you get some great interactions between not only Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, or Thor and the Valkyrie, but you also get these wonderful, wonderful scenes of Thor talking to the kids, right? Talking to the children who have been captured, kind of inspiring hope in them. And then at the end of the movie, again, extra on, I know I already said spoilers, but an extra on top of that spoiler of talking about that Thor ends up essentially giving the Asgardian children, they're not all Asgardian, but it doesn't matter. He gives them temporary Thor power and he ends up using the children to save the day. And I think that's it was really touching way to do it, because obviously, you go into the movie and it's Marvel. They're not going to kill kids, obviously. I wasn't worried at all, I'll admit, while watching the movie. And I think that if I was going to give a critique of the movie, the reason why it's not like 10 out of 10 for me it's a 9 out of 10. But the reason why it's not 10 out of 10 is because you kind of know that no one's really going to die who like is the main character. Obviously, when Jane died, that sucked. I thought she was going to get to stick around, but her character wasn't really doing much anyway, so I didn't feel too emotionally hurt when she died. And best of all, even though they make it seem like, oh, we're going to add new characters, but we take them away, they actually go ahead and do add in a new character, and it comes in the form of Gore's daughter, who ends up having her own like demon powers and such, and ends up being raised by Thor, which is absolutely incredible. I didn't see that coming, and the constant going back and forth with children and making children a really big emphasis of the movie, I guess was a pretty good secretive foreshadow, because I didn't see it coming, but because they always talked about, Thor wants to have a kid with Jane, and maybe they're gonna have get Jane pregnant. I thought there was gonna be a plot like that, but that doesn't happen. Instead, Jane dies, and Thor gets the main bad guy's kid to join him on questing and saving the day and going on wonderful Thor adventures. And this is just my initial reactions, and for the review seriousness portion of it, I would say this has been an absolute blast. I loved it. Writing wise, I thought it was very easy to follow, very smooth. I didn't get confused very much. I will say that it did feel like the Guardians of the Galaxy didn't really get to do that much, and I guess you need all the characters there, but it really didn't feel like they were that necessary for the story they were telling. But I guess for a good follow through, that's always good to see. So I really liked it. I had a wonderful time, and honestly, more than anything, the movie was just inspiring, and it made me feel really, really good after watching it, and I can't wait to share it. Not only with, I'm excited for all of you who are watching this, but I think I might talk about other movies in the future. I don't know what it would be, but I'm having an absolute blast, and I feel really inspired to make new kinds of content. So thank you all for watching. I've had so much fun, and as always, guys, I'm definitely going to be seeing you guys next time. Take care, everyone.